Here we are. Good afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time of the day it is when you're checking this out. Here's what we're going to do. I've got like we got a case that we were doing for tonight. Got like 5 articles. Going to wrap up whole brain, make sure we got whole brain, just that topic. Intuition, intuition, make sure that's kind of wrapped. We've got, stories, going to talk about stories a little bit. And then creativity. And that's going to fill us up here. It might take 2 hours. We'll see how long. Maybe I need a break and cut these up into smaller chunks. We'll see. Okay, so let's talk about upcoming stuff. I'm assuming you check this out, right? So next week, you realize, okay, that's the last regular class meeting. We've done it. We've survived. Well, we got a few things to do. You got to turn in a value creation paper. Everybody's got to do that. We got to take a final. But yeah, we've just about done it. We kind of got a routine down here. So let's see what's happening next week. We've got boosting your creativity, 7 techniques, and inspired by design. Okay. Claire's doing this whole deal. We got these techniques, psychological kind of techniques, whatever you want to call them, and boosting creativity. Then we've got inspired by design. It's a little copy of an article, but the main thing on that, Claire, are you listening? Is along the margin, along the bottom is where it talks about stuff relative to creativity. That's why there's so many pieces to this, because you got the couple pages, whatever, maybe 3 on 7 techniques, but then you got that bottom margin on that inspired by design thing, and then you got this collage of items from newspapers. Maybe that thing's probably like 4 or 5 pages itself. It's just kind of cut and pasted stuff from newspapers. So all in all, it's a collection of things you might do to enhance your creative abilities. And some of these other articles we've got, but this one just kind of got chunks and pieces, like tonight's article about Twyla Tharp, Creative Habit, or by Twyla Tharp. It tells you techniques that she's developed to be a creative choreographer, dance person. Okay, but Claire, boosting creativity, 7 techniques, inspired by design, the bottom margin, newspaper collage, there's like 4 or 5, digest it, get what you can, give me a little shopping list, whatever you can do. Claire, got it? Okay, good. Free play, Colleen, this is a total goofy article, congratulations on getting this one. Free play, what the heck is that about? Well, Colleen's going to tell us. This is all next week. Posting this stuff up to Google Docs. Back to this being a resource. Print some of this stuff off if you want to keep it forever, because it could be worth it. Then Max and Alex S are going to do Gregerson about better brainstorming, and Cohn et al., which talks about, well, do you want to really think outside the box? You want to be inside the box. So about brainstorming again. So that's Max and Alex S, Gregerson and the Cohn articles. And then we've got 2 techniques to enhance creative thinking. And sometimes I've taught a class like this on creativity and intuition. We got a whole array of these techniques. We go through like 7, 8 of them. There's probably 20 in this documents that I've got. But we'll talk about a typical one that you always hear about, brainstorming. So we got Gregerson and Cohn, the articles there kind of critique brainstorming a little bit. And then we've got Annalise and Rory doing brainstorming. And don't forget, there's a handout in your packet of a little guy having a brainstorm. Oh, handout 70. Okay, with some rules of doing brainstorms. So handout 70, and then they're going to summarize some stuff, kind of do what they can, post something up there. Usually what I like to do is something live action in the class, but Yeah, that's not as doable in the world we live in. Okay, Annalise, Rory, brainstorming, got it. And then SCAMPers. SCAMPers an acronym for substitute, and C stands for combine, and whatever. Okay, SCAMPer, Jake and Alex Muck. Alex Muck. So Jake and Alex Muck are going to do something on SCAMPer, kind of sum it up. They're going to sum up something that's already summed up, but whatever. And I'll talk about those a little bit. Okay, so articles, Colleen, Claire and Colleen and Alex, S and Max and Annalise and Rory and Jake and Alex Muck are all going to do that. And then we'll talk about whatever's left of the class, and I'll give you some stuff to think about for the final we're going to have the week after, and online action. Okay, that's what happens next week. Hot dog, well, that didn't take long. Let's see. Oh, here's the case for tonight. This is Blair water filter, and you can see the executive summaries out there at Google Docs. So that's where you go for that. And the folks doing the case tonight, of course, we got the Alexes. All the Alexes are doing Blair water filter, including Natalie, to kind of balance them out. And they're the team. And then we have Francesca and Jeanne, and Max and Joe as two teams. Max and Joe A. Okay, so Blair water filters. We're off to faraway India. And Blair is an American company that specializes in water purification, filtration stuff. And they're thinking about international expansion into the Indian market. And companies assign some employees to evaluate the market, and should they enter it? How should they do it? They even give you some options in this case. How about a joint venture, joint working agreement, licensing? Okay, that's one. Joint working agreement, which is a licensing thing. Then they also mention joint venture relationship, and then they mention acquisition. There's some, maybe not even enter it, or some hybrid of these things. There's some other ideas. So that's the idea, that they've got this, the water isn't so good in India, and here's an opportunity perhaps for Blair to cash in on their expertise and enter this market. And so they've got polluted water a bit. It's 50% of the folks boil their water, is that right? And so you got those ways of moving in with the licensing, joint venture, acquisition. And what should we do? So what else can I say? This gets a bit at well, first, just the decision to enter a market. This international market. So market entry, maybe some pricing stuff, target market stuff. What part of the market are you pursuing? Because this is likely to be a more pricey kind of product. So, skim the market, approach to pricing, or penetrate. That's the opposite, of course. So it's kind of high end. Maybe skimming is more appropriate. If they enter the market, let's see, heavy advertising maybe. I don't know. Get their name out there. So deciding on channels of distribution, maybe how they're going to partner. About electricity. Electricity is kind of a part of the deal. I think you need it for their product. Not everybody has it. So I'm sorry you're not getting the official version of this, but there's a thumbnail thing on Blair water filter, and you can go to Google Docs and get the official from the folks that really know what they're talking about. There should be 3 executive summaries out there for you to examine on Blair water filters. Hot dog. Well, put that to rest. You know, I tried to do the case, I tried to do the articles, and then I got my lecture thing. I tried to make this all kind of come together in one place in an intelligent kind of fashion. Okay, let's do a little, you know, some of these topics. I got little brain teaser kind of things that I've done. Oh, you already saw this, didn't you? There you are. Left brain, right brain, those busy little beavers on the left. Well, we read an article tonight that wasn't sure if it, you know, left brain, right brain. Well, it's a metaphor. There was a Dugan article where they talked about Sperry, who kind of poo-pooed some of the left-right stuff, but whatever. It's a metaphor for different ways of thinking. That's a nice little picture. Here, let me show you. Here's a, you know, we're talking about whole brain decision making, and so you don't want to. I'm not saying to discount the analysis side. I'm talking about different angles. Remember that plug? Different angles on the same thing. It looked like a cube. It looked like a circle. It looked like a triangle, maybe even an equilateral triangle. So, yeah, different angles on the same problem, the same question, the same decision, and it's sort of like this. You know, here's my favorite. I don't know if you can you make a copy of that? Print that screen. That's my favorite optical. Where did I put it so it's just really nice and big? And look at that. That's my favorite optical illusion. It's a great optical illusion. It's like, what the heck, spirals, right? Going down to the vortex or whatever you want to say. Well, au contraire, that's in French. It's actually concentric circles, but it's an optical illusion where they drew it with those little triangles and stuff in there. It's concentric circles. So what's the point? You know, sometimes you're going to have to stop and do the analysis, okay, like this. You don't want to be led astray by your assumptions and your intuition necessarily, but you augment decision making with the soft side, or augment the soft side with the hard side. I mean, two angles on the same decision, at least. Why not? And so there you go. That's what that depicts. And then here's this. This is an interesting little puzzle. There it is. Okay, so here it is. Here's the story. Turn the incorrect Roman numeral equation made out of 10 sticks, these are like matchsticks or something, into a correct one by moving as few sticks as possible. So there you go. We got 10 sticks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, yeah, 10. There's 10 sticks. And you want to turn that inaccurate Roman numeral equation into an accurate one. And how would you do that? So you can kind of brute force this. You can kind of think about it. Yes. Oh, I think we can get it down to, how about 1 stick? You can move 1 stick and it'll be right. Which one is it? Right? Make the equation accurate. Well, yeah, you can brute force it, and what you'll do, you'll take that one and move it over here. And now you got it. 10 plus 1 equals 11 in Roman numerals. You just move this 1 stick right here. Move it over. There it goes. And that's all cool. But that's kind of a brute, you kind of brute force, you sit there, grind. But what they found, this is kind of a little insight into creativity. People have tried to study creativity, and one of the things they've done is used puzzles, brain teasers, to kind of get at creativity. And what they found was, when the insightful, creative solution to this puzzle was come upon, what do they say? You got beta and gamma waves in your brain, is that right? Delta and gamma waves characterize mental processing as memory. That's delta, memory. Gamma, coordinated mental activity, bringing different things together. they both virtually disappeared when the insightful decision was come upon. And the insightful decision is this one. Oh, well, I moved no sticks. I didn't move a stick, did I? Let me show you again. There it is. I didn't even move one stick, and I made that an accurate equation. I solved a mathematical problem through a spatial maneuver. I flipped it over and solved it. And when that happens, these delta and gamma waves just about shut off. And what they found, okay, back to Sperry, saying, oh, left brain, right brain stuff. You know, he got a Nobel Prize, but the guy who came up with left brain, right brain, he got a Nobel Prize 25 years before that, 20. There's your ASTG. You probably are familiar with your ASTG, right? It's your let me put that back there. So I don't know if everybody believes what I just did. Okay. There's your ASTG. What is your ASTG? It's your anterior superior temporal gyrus. Anterior superior temporal gyrus. And when, let's see, what's it say here? Particularly important. This thing fired up. It brings this thing draws together distantly related information. And where is this thing? It's over your right ear. It's kind of right in there, right side of your brain, right? The intuitive, spatial, creative, music and dance and whatever else is happening there, you know, more emotional probably. Okay, that's where your A is, the anterior superior temporal gyrus. And when folks came upon the 0 stick solution to this, that fired up, okay, bringing in distant information, back to whole brain kind of stuff. Okay, here's a couple more. You know, let's see. Here's another one that gets the ASTG fired up. Here are these 3 words. And each of these words can be combined with one other word to come up with a compound word. Come on, stay up there. Okay? Each of these words can be combined with one other word and come up with these compound words. And so you start grinding. Anybody got it? No hands came up. Grinding. How about now? Sauce, pine, crab, apple. Okay. Maybe you need to rub that spot right there. Okay, rub that spot. The ASTG. Applesauce, pineapple, crab, apple. Here's one that's harder. This is back in history. Try this one. This is kind of historical. Same game. Three words. You can take one word and combine it with each of those and come up with a compound word. Same word. Add it to any of those and come up with that compound word. Bump, step, egg. It's a little harder because there's a little historical angle there. Rub that spot right above your right ear. Rub it like crazy. And just really rub that. Okay, God. Goose. Did you get that one? Goose. Goose bump. Goose egg. Goose step is the little, that's what the Nazis did. Maybe some other military organizations march with a goose step. The Nazis marched with a goose step. So you got goose bump, goose step, goose egg. Okay, well, that's a little game. What else do I have here? Oh, one bonus one. Who came up with this? Mind lick table. Mind lick table. Mind lick. I'm not going to tell you the answer to that one. You're just going to have to figure it out for yourself. Okay. Well, that's just a little warm-up thing, just to kind of break the ice, just kind of getting to know each other, you know? Kind of getting to know each other. We talked about epistemology last class period or last lecture. I don't know. God, where am I? What planet am I on? We talked about epistemology, how people know things, and that's what the Einhorn Hogarth article kind of got at. You know, thinking backwards. You know, look at causal effects more. Maybe cranking in some intuition a little more, thinking forward, using models, more analytical approach probably. And then we had that swell diagram that I made myself, you know, thinking forward, thinking backward, top down, bottom up, fast and slow, inductive, deductive, you got all that. Here's another angle on how we know things. And it's kind of building up to the first article we have. And here's the topic. Stories. Fundamental way humans have to know things over the millennia, okay? It's in a form of epistemology, how we know things. And so stories, you know, they would told around campfires or whatever. They'd strengthen and shape tribal identities. They'd make for distinctiveness between our group and the other groups, work on relationships with other groups. So stories. Who is probably the greatest storyteller based on impact? I think this is fair. I think it's safe. Greatest storyteller based on impact. I vote for, who do you vote for? Greatest storyteller based on impact on humanity. Jesus of Nazareth. You got it. That's right. Parables, telling stories. So that's who I vote for anyway. So human beings have spent hours telling stories and hearing stories. Can I take these off for a minute? Oh, that's what I look like without my glasses. Spending hours each day telling and hearing stories. They always have. Around the fire, around kitchen tables, over the web, whatever, okay? So stories. So I think that the sagas from Iceland, got some great stories, sagas from Iceland. So it's proposed that there's a re-emphasis on this uniquely human activity in recent time. Here's a quote from some folks. This is what some think. We're in a time of society when we're in the twilight, so a twilight time in a society based on data. As information and intelligence become domains of computers, society will place new value on the human activity that can't be automated. Emotion, imagination, myth, ritual, the language of stories and emotion. So that's what's being proposed. In a business context, the idea is that it'll affect everything from our purchasing decisions, the brands that are chosen, to how we work with others in organizations. So the idea of stories, moving from this data and information-based time and society to kind of recapturing something that's been a part of humanity for millennia. Well, I don't know if I should do this next little thing, but it talks about stories that kind of relate to brands and companies, and kind of going back to primitive stories from tribal and with a tribal and religious context. Maybe I'll put it up just kind of quick. And put it up, you can't see that. Too bad. I got to hold stuff up here and I got to read, and I can't do all three things at once. I don't have enough brains to do all three at once. So taking this idea, this primal code, this is kind of basic to tribal and religious context. Here, I got my finger where I don't, there, move that. The primal code. A lot of tribal and religious contexts have these components. And so just kind of talking about this with regard to companies and brands, and someone was proposing this. It'll let you think see what you think. But check it out. Here it is, an application to Apple. Okay, check it out. You can take it to Nike or Levi or some other these strong brands, Google, whatever, Amazon. Okay, the creation story. Let's do Apple. Two Steves, Jobs and Wozniak, create a computer in their garage. That's the creation story. The creed. I don't know what their slogan is right now. It's like think different. It used to be. It's like slogan related to the company. So this is applying this primal code, this thing from native cultures and religions to brands. The stories, it's a story. It's just kind of a story they tell. The icons, the Apple logo. Do they still use that bong sound? Bong. How do they do? You know, these are symbols, icons, symbols of the organization. Rituals. They do Mac World conferences still. The pagans. Okay. How about non-believers? Those on the outside, those that don't believe what our primal code is all about. And that's like the IBM users, right? Remember they used to do that. I'm an IBM, I'm a Mac. That IBM was such a nerd, but they really work. Okay, the sacred words. So we got the pagans. How about the sacred words? iPhone, iPad, iPod, I don't know, iTunes, iMac. Okay, and then the leader. You know, I mean, you think of who's the president of Apple now, CEO, whatever he is. Well, it's not Steve Jobs, but you think it's Steve Jobs all the time. Okay, there's a little thing. Thinking about primal code, stories. Maybe relate to brands, relate to corporate identity. That's kind of interesting. So, stories. The power of stories come in the fact that they connect the logical left brain is what they do with the more holistic right brain. So it's whole brain thinking. Stories help you get into whole brain thinking, mind and heart. The idea is the mind is kind of the target. The mind's kind of the target for a story, but the heart's the bullseye. You know, so you get the bullseye. So just as words speak to the mind, stories speak to the heart. It's more than just words, so it adds more to it. And so you think about stories of companies, stories of brands, and you know, companies getting more into what their story is when you think about brand activism and stuff like that. So let's see. Here, let me knock my computer on the floor. I'm trying to get to what we, yeah, you know, it's for an internal audience, of course. I mean, the stories can be used internally to inspire employees, to acculturalize, bring folks into the corporate culture, the esprit. So it can be used internally in that regard on employees to train, to inspire, to acculturalize, you know. Kind of the esprit of the organization. But then it can be used externally, of course, with customers and other stakeholders. And so you think about, you know, I mentioned Apple and iDevices. I mean, you think about the stories that come to mind to customers and other stakeholders. And like I said, Amazon and Google, Gucci, Cartier. How about Walmart? How about Vans? Okay. So thinking about the stories of products and brand activism maybe gets into it, but how about things like, you know, the story of a product? Like how about a sweater made from wool from one sheep? Or how about, you got coffee from a single estate coffee, one place? There's a story there. Here was one. How about Ice Cube? Even Ice Cube. Check this out. Ice Cube for your drink. Ice Cube from glaciers of Greenland. Can you buy those? Ice Cube from the glaciers of Greenland. This ice cube has been in storage for several thousands of years, and when it melts, fresh air from the time that Cleopatra was a little girl is released. Okay, so stories, the power of stories. They go right to the heart. That's the bullseye. The mind gets engaged. It's whole brain kind of stuff, and you can think of all kinds of products, and stories maybe becoming a more important angle to products. We got chocolates from one estate. We got, Gonzaga was involved in Zimbabwe honey. Here, what makes for a good story? Check this out. I'll just give this to you real quick. I want to tell a story. Here's what you do. Now at the bottom it tells you, hey, a story needs a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, it goes around in a circle, a beginning, middle, and end. We're going to talk about strategic stories. Instead of bulletized strategic plans, we got stories here. It's an older article, but maybe it was ahead of its time. Here's what makes for a good story. You tell people when and where it's happening. So I got down here, I got the blue, and then I got red from another source. And then when and where. And then the who, those are the characters. And then the connections, maybe some romance, but there's a plot. And then the conflict. That's like the conflict over here, okay? The problem, what's the problem? And then who's the adversary? The villain. I mean, it could be an individual, it could be a situation, it didn't have to be a person necessarily. So we got where and when, who, connections, the engagement between those folks. Conflict, what's the problem? Got the adversary, the villain. There's some danger. Yeah, it makes it exciting. And then there's resolution. That's kind of the message. Resolution, the message. And then do they live happily ever after? Okay, maybe they do. So those are some components of stories, some ways to tell stories. But look at this. This is one last thing on stories. I probably digress more. I don't know if this is a digression. We're building up to an article. It's not a digression. Give me a break. This is something called mind melding. Whoa, this is like Jedi Knights or something. Look at this. When brains connect, what's it say? Brains couple, mind melding, meeting of the minds. When brains couple, listener brain activity. This was looking at brain waves, okay? And so we've got the speaker in red and the listener in black. And it's like what they tested, they did this with brain MRI, I think MRI imaging, something like that. And looking at brain waves, whatever. These were kind of vivid stories. I mean, they weren't just, I went shopping today and couldn't buy any toilet paper. Maybe that's vivid in this world we live in, kind of weird and vivid. But some vivid stories, okay? Like there was some substance to them, some excitement, maybe some of those features that I just described of a good story. How's that? And so here the speaker is speaking. There's the pattern of the speaker speaking. And the black line is the listener kind of catching it. Oh yeah, they're catching it, okay? And so that says speaker precedes the listener. That kind of makes sense. Yeah, I'm talking and you're gonna listen. But then there's this zero lag. Like now the minds are melding. This is kind of interesting. And the listener is moving with the speaker. And then what if you just click? Don't forget the black line. Where am I here? The black line is the listener. And what if you just click and the listener is getting it before you even say it? That's like, think about the idea of clicking with somebody. They are ahead of you as you're speaking, and they're just getting it. Okay. So here's what this article, this is out of the Wall Street Journal. I'm generating a brain wave that generates a sound wave that generates a brain wave in you. It just happened. I'm generating a brain wave that generates a sound wave that generates a brain wave in you. There's nothing mystical about this. It's not a Jedi mind trick. This is what communication is. That's what they're saying in this article. It is what humans do best, and it's unique and amazing. It's what communication is, two minds engaged or more, two or more engaged in the activity. That's what communication is. Well, hot dog, that's a little lead in. Some interesting stuff, I believe. It's a little lead in to Shaw. This is getting to be an older article. But strategic stories, Shaw et al. This is 3M using this approach. Yeah, we got Shaw et al. Strategic stories at 3M. And so strategic planning. And what's wrong with strategic planning? Well, here, the lead in. Who did this? You can get the real thing. I'm just giving you the Anthony. Anthony did this for you. Just check it out. He did the real thing. I'm giving you the bogus version. Humans tend to have an easier time understanding concepts and ideas when they are presented in story form, because we've done it for millennia. And it's the way we know things, epistemology. And it gets the mind, it gets the left brain, that's my left, engaged with the right. The mind's the target. The heart's the bullseye. Okay, back to that idea. So, yeah, what's wrong with bullet lists? It tells you all this stuff. Bullet lists are typically too generic. They leave out critical relationships. They leave critical assumptions. They leave out critical assumptions about what's going on. The bullet lists present only an illusion of clarity, and it can be an expensive illusion, is a quote from the article, when things screw up, okay? So writing strategic stories, putting in a story context, scenario, sometimes this is called scenario planning. Back to this stuff, a lot of the stuff I'm giving is just kind of resource stuff. How much of this can you test? Yeah, I'm letting you dig into it, present stuff, hear about it, and then you print some of this stuff off, take it, or write the reference down at least so you can find it later on. Think about scenario planning and using stories as a strategic planning tool. Okay, so writing strategic stories is set the stage, define the current situation, introduce dramatic conflict, back to the conflict, what makes for a good story. The conflict, what obstacles might you face? What are the hurdles? Then you reach resolution, in a convincing manner with the plan that how you're gonna overcome those obstacles and win. So if you read just bullet points, you may not get it, but if you read a narrative plan, you will. If there's a flaw in the logic, it glares right out at you. With bullets, you don't know what insight is really there and what the plan, what was just merely a shopping list. So why strategic planning stories? Well-written stories show an innovative solution leading to an improved market share. That's what they're hoping for. People can locate themselves in the story, sense of commitment and involvement, conveys a powerful impression of the process of winning. It's a narrative. You're taking on the adversary, taking on the problem. You're overcoming the difficulty. Let's see. A good story and a good strategic plan defines relationships, a sequence of events, cause and effect, and a priority among items, and those elements are likely to be remembered as a complex whole versus bullets and points on a traditional strategic plan. Anthony, is that, should we let you carry the ball from here? Okay, good plan. So there you go. Here's some last comments. Well, let's see, maybe they're not the last, but as I move forward here, thinking about intuition, I guess the main thing, we talked about what it was, and we had our 4 categories of intuition. Maybe you thought about that. Thought about those 4 aspects of intuition from what I presented, where we had physical dimension. Maybe you thought about it personally. Think about it. Physical dimension, body sensations, headache, stomachache, whatever, gut. Emotional, just feelings about them. Affective, can I feel this way? Physical, emotional, mental, the percolating. It's back in the back of your brain there, and you've been percolating on that, like Archimedes, and it comes, you get the blast of insight. We're going to talk about that as intuition being a gateway to creativity. So physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, still small voice. Maybe you've experienced some of those things. So we had that categorization scheme, and then we had Dugan's approach, where he talked about ordinary intuition, which was physical and emotional, catching those 2 categories. Expert, this is like Blink, you just clue in on a few important pieces and you got the answer. Frozen analysis, like Rupert Murdoch making business decisions, or the Blink idea, like someone in an ER environment making medical decisions. And then, so we got ordinary, expert, and then strategic. That's the mental, the percolating. That's flash, according to Dugan. So there's Dugan. Okay. So here's this article, When to Trust Your Gut. Who did this one for? Claire, thanks for doing that, Claire. You got to do one next week too, huh? So Claire did the Hayashi article here. Put these up so I can actually kind of read. This article, it's an older article. It starts off with a story of the Viper. God, I don't know. I think the last Viper didn't have the 600s. It had 600 cubic inches, 600 foot-pounds of torque, 600 horsepower. Yes, that's a car. Anyway, it tells a story about the Viper and how Robert Lutz, the then CEO of Bob Lutz, Robert, of Chrysler, kind of came up with the idea of the Viper. But okay, when to trust your gut? Why is your gut important? Gut instincts are the way we translate our experience into judgment and action. It's a sum total of experiences, and that sum enables us to make reasonable decisions. It does talk about our mind and body being all entwined. Remember Zaltman? Zaltman talking about consciousness is embodied. Yeah, it's all okay. It's all twisted together there. And so the idea of your gut or whatever, it's not your mind and body are all floating around inside it's all happening. You got this physical vehicle that it's all moving forward through. Whatever I just said, you figured out. Why is your gut important? Research has uncovered that our emotions and feelings might not only be important, but are essential in decision. Yeah, I mean, come on. Okay, so this is just kind of honking the whole brain horn a little bit and allows to make decisions in a timely manner. So we had that, when does intuition come into play? You had that handout based on Agor. That's fine, based on Agor. Do I need to give you the number again? Do I have it handy here where I can give it to you again? Well, it's a handout. Okay. We identified last time that, when is intuition? God, well, I don't know if I have the right number on it. There it is. I don't think it's number 12. I could show you what it looks like. 65. 65. When does intuition come into play? And so, yeah, you don't have much time. You don't have, facts aren't guiding you to the answer. The data isn't. And then you got to make a decision. You don't have a lot of time. You don't have, okay, so you have to go, research, like we talked about that woman who took on that turnover assignment. Research, research, research. And then you go with your gut. That's what she said. That's how you do it. So why is it important? Yeah, you got a whole brain, right? And it talks about the importance of emotion. How does it work? Experience enables people to chunk information, back to frozen analysis and Rupert Murdoch and whatever. Chunks, we talk about chess masters, chunks of information, that whole chessboard as one chunk, and know things that you can't articulate that you know real well. You just know them from years of experience, of frozen analysis, or some sense you've got of things. Well, what do you think, Claire? Chunking, yeah, like those chess masters. It tells how to keep things in check. I mean, intuition can lead you astray. Back to that optical illusion that I showed you. Self-checking mechanisms kind of gets at that. Well, we'll see. Check out what Claire did. And it kind of got at the physical, emotional, and mental approaches to intuition, if you look at that article. So, yeah, there you go. That's my little look at that. And that was Hayashi. And here's my next challenge, is to start into creativity. And what do we know about creativity? Back to intuition being a pathway, we're going to talk about that. I mean, what could be? Back to the ASTG, hold it, that's the wrong. ASTG right over here with the right ear, whatever. These blasts of insight, bringing disparate information together in one place. That's what the ASTG does. So creativity is not very well understood what it is. I mean, you think about creativity in the arts, yeah, poetry and painting and stories. I mean, we see it there. You think about in the sciences, the latest technological marvel. I mean, we kind of get that. But creativity is an important soft skill, like people skills in organizations. Creative ways of solving problems. In marketing, you think about, how about new products and promotion campaigns and management? How about HR programs, human resource stuff, employee retention, finance, how to finance a project. And so, yeah, new products. Let's see what I got here. Has anybody been to a creativity seminar? You have seminars in creativity. Oh God, I don't know. That's a Japanese toilet. There's the control panel. Okay, it does amazing things. I hear once you've tried it, you'll never go back. You've been ruined for, who needs toilet paper? When you got that, it does amazing things. Okay, new products. Creativity seminars. I mean, Epcot and Disney World has the World of Imagination over in Florida, you know. We have Professor Somebody and Figment is, okay, Figment of your imagination, get it? So individual creativity is the backbone of organizational creativity, and we're all trying to, that's what we're trying to work with. Individual creativity is kind of what we're kind of linking into here, and give you some ideas, some tools, some things to think about, some things to read about the topic. So there's two major dimensions to creativity, two major dimensions. I'm going to show you some more stuff here, but first is output. And the one thing about creativity is you know it when you see it. Some folks call it, you know, it's novel and it's useful. You're going, oh God, that's pretty creative. And we're all creative, you know. We're not all in you know, coming up with the theory of relativity or inventing something or whatever, or painting the Mona Lisa, whatever. But you know, there's scales to creativity, and it's not that you're not, just because you're not working on the world-shaking kind of level of things, that doesn't mean you're not creative, right? So we're all creative, and we all notice creativity. It amazes us, and it can do things, and it has meaning and purpose. It's novel and useful. Here's what some folks call, that's the output, the result of the creative process. I mean, I amaze my wife weekly. I get some appliance that she wish I would just let die. Just give it up, Jim. And I keep it going. You have to know the trick to make it work. But I keep it going. And it amazes, it amazes her too. It amazes me, but it amazes her too. So effective surprise is what some folks call this. The output. We know what it looks like. All levels of it. We can see it in ourselves keeping that washing machine going, that food processor or whatever. And then we see someone who invents something, the latest, the newest, whatever, back in history, those pillars of invention. Okay. So effective surprise. It has meaning, has purpose, and it's novel and useful. So on a personal level, yeah, you can think about individually yourself and being able to do that. And we've already talked about Archimedes, you know, and Poe. We mentioned Poe and between wakefulness and sleep. Thinking about strategic intuition. You know, we had that idea of strategic intuition. And that kind of gets at Poe and Archimedes and other folks. We mentioned David Ogilvy and the father of modern advertising is who he is. There was Mozart. He couldn't sleep. A lot of these folks couldn't sleep. There's Mozart. So we had advertising folks. We had, I mentioned Poincaré. Had some of the fundamental formulas for Einstein's theory of relativity. Here's Mozart. When I am as it were, completely myself entirely alone and of good cheer, say traveling in a carriage, walking after a good meal, or during the night when I cannot sleep. It is on such occasions that my ideas flow best and most abundantly. Whence and how they come, I know not, nor can I force them. And that's how it's kind of in the zone is what he's doing. I mean, that's where his music came from. We mentioned David Ogilvy and John Barleycorn. Anybody look up John? I'm not going to tell you about it. Right, so check it out. You want to know about John, you got to go look up John. So the output, okay, all these folks, Mozart, David Ogilvy with these ad campaigns that were classics. Running that business, David Mather and Ogilvy and Mather, whatever it was. Okay, so we know the output. We've seen folks that have done it. You know, we've seen it on a mini level personally. So there aren't two categories, I don't think. It's not the creative box. Where's that hand? It's not the creative box and the non-creative. I'm backwards here on this screen. Okay, it's not the creative box, focusing on that box, and non-creative box, focusing on that box. No, it always said, you know, it could be new if it's only new to you. So, but there are things you can do to enhance creativity. And I'm reading some of these articles, and so a couple of techniques we're going to look at. But we'll talk about that more. But here's something that came to, here's a definition. Oh, first, how about this? Here's a little philosophical thing. Let's see, we already mentioned Jesus of Nazareth today. How about this? A creature created by and in the likeness of a creator, therefore, you're creative. What do you think? You're a creature created by and in the likeness of a creator. That's scriptural. Therefore, you're creative. I don't know. I thought that was kind of fun to play with, and it kind of made sense to me. So here's a kind of a definition of, where is it? Up here. You know, thinking about what is creativity. The reorganization of experience into new configurations. It's a function of knowledge, imagination, and evaluation. Yeah, well, that's kind of what it is, I guess. The reorganization of experience into new configuration. You got that going on, experience, but you also have knowledge. What's imagination? That's like the fire that gets things percolating, right? And evaluation, which is more, it's assessment, right? Evaluation. So you got that kind of idea on creativity. So we've talked about the output, we've talked about the process, looked at some folks' process, and then that definition. And part of what, I don't know where I got this, part of what happens with creativity, let's put that back. Part of what happens with creativity is that we bend and blend and break stuff, reorganize it, bend it, blend it, break it. And that's kind of what's going on. I don't know where I snatched that, but I thought, yeah, that kind of makes sense when you look at that definition. Think about reorganization, bend, blend, and break. Okay. So here's a picture. And do I have, I think this is handout 66. Let me look. Yeah. 66. This came to me in the night. like Mozart, like Paul McCartney, like Edgar Allan Poe. Here's a picture of a creativity system. What do you think? These are kind of components of creativity. You've got the raw materials here, the input, the experience. We've got the process, that's the fire. We've got the output, and we've got the implementation, putting into action. We got some evaluation up here, control, just like a regular system, input, process, output, feedback, control. I think you might have seen that before when we talk about systems in general, but here's a creativity system. Input, so this is number 66 in your packet. Don't have it there, but yes, I just said that, 66, okay. So we've talked about the output. Yeah, we know it when we see it. And probably got that one pinned down. So we're going to dig into some of these others. We got the ones with the stars are kind of the ones we dig into. We already did output pretty much, but just make some comments on this. So there's a creativity system. It looks like it's almost all on the board. Okay. So do I want to do this yet or not? Maybe I'll go look at an article here. So the next article is Intuition as the Doorway and Dugan and the Insight Matrix. Joe A. took us through this. Let's take a look here. I think that's probably, yeah, that's probably a good place to link up with an article. And then we'll talk about that a little bit. That system. So just a couple of quick comments. You got the real thing there. Joe A took care of it. He only had 2 articles and maybe made comment about the Insight Matrix, but let's see what we got here. So we had intuition as the doorway to creativity. And intuition is vital yet mysterious aspect of creativity. Hard to define when you are in an intuitive state of mind. So it talks about who are the intuitive folks. It mentions mind and body integration, body and mind. You know, it's like Zaltman, cognition being embodied. So kind of get some of that. Everything you know and have experienced about a topic comes together. Intuition is fresh, alive, and connected with. It's very important to the creative process, and it draws on so many faculties and senses. And then it mentions an intuitive state of mind. This kind of gets at, these are from Dugan. Here's what it says. This is saying intuition as a doorway to creativity. Sense of openness, poised relaxation, sense of integral expansiveness. What the heck is that? I don't know. Flexibility of mind, sense of nuance and subtlety. Well, you know, there's Dugan again, kind of talking about it. I showed you this last time. You know, sleep, fluid thinking, non-rigid, non-rule based, offline, low stress, relaxed, non-judging. Defocused attention, daydreaming, diffuse. You're not focusing on the topic. So it's kind of, there's some other stuff from Dugan that kind of gets at this intuitive state of mind that he's mentioning here. And so then intuition as a doorway, intuition is a secret ingredient when it comes to cultivating creativity. One way to listen to your intuition is by quieting your mind. Mornings are preferred due to the brain's alpha waves that are being very active at that time. Okay, so get into some neuroscience kind of stuff here. Once intuition is focused upon, your creativeness will be awakened and become active in everything you do. Allow your mind to wander by taking breaks from day-to-day activities. A wandering mind is a relaxed mind. Okay, so that kind of gets it. I mean, Joe did a better job than that, but check it out. And then we had the Dugan article. Okay, intuition as a doorway to creativity. We didn't have an author on that, and I'm not sure why. Maybe that's why I labeled it just as intuition as a doorway, but I think it was Dugan. And then we got how aha. Well, this is the Dugan article. How aha really happens. That's what you did, Joe, isn't it? You got intuition as the doorway. And then we had how aha happens. That's Dugan. And this is where he got into talking about the Nobel Prize winner, Sperry, for his work on the 2 sides. I got him confused with who was the guy that replaced Sperry in this thinking. Well, he got a Nobel Prize. Sperry got the Nobel Prize for left and right brain stuff. But the more modern approach was cognitive neuroscience, where it says the new model of the brain is intelligent memory, in which analysis and intuition work together. Oh, sort of like back to Zaltman. You know, it's commingled. Analysis and intuition, whatever you want, what labels you want to give that stuff. So intelligent memory is, in human beings, ultimately one of the greatest inventory systems on Earth. And so it kind of gets at this idea of intelligent memory and how to harness it. And that's where, let's see if I'm ready for this. That's where the insight matrix came up. Let's see. Yeah. Here's the tool that is, you know, they talk about this insight matrix. Geez, now all I got to do is find mine. Oh, there it is. They talk about the insight matrix in this how aha happened kind of things. Maybe it's Kandel, 2000. Eric Kandel won a Nobel Prize for showing how humans produce a new thought, more whole brain kind of stuff. We had Sperry back in 1986 or so. And then Kandel kind of shed some additional light on things. And that's what you get in this little summary. So this is the insight matrix. Well, it's right after this article, these two articles. So we got the article, you know, intuition as the doorway, and then we got the Dugan article, how aha really happens. And then we got this thing. Now this is kind of FYI. I mean, it's for your information. It's a tool that they developed at GE, and it gets at whole brain decision making. And coming off of Kandel, additions to what Sperry did and left brain, right brain stuff. And so it gives you a little shopping list kind of thing. Tells you what to do first. You get a number 1. There's number 1. Then you get a number 2 and 3 on the next page, 2 and 3 on the next page. And then you get some additional ideas. You get 5 pages. 4 pages of this. Oh, then number 4. Where's number 4? Oh, it's number 4. It is designing the boxes. So I don't know. It's like cross categorization of things. And you can read about this technique. It's like getting at the way the brain organizes stuff. You know, it's like this filing. What I say, the most complex filing system on Earth. The way the brain files all these things, and this insight matrix is try to help things to stimulate that cross-firing kind of stuff, you know, bringing in disparate, back to that idea of the astg, disparate information from different places, bringing it together to focus on this particular situation. So that's the insight matrix. It kind of comes off of Joe's 2 articles. It's kind of the grand finale there. I'm looking for, it mentions number 4 at the end, but I'm trying to see, is that, they don't mention it until the last page? I guess that's where 4 is located, but okay. Should you need that sometime in life, when you're trying to come up with some ideas, there's a tool. You're getting a few of them. There's one. There'll be more. But some tools in how to stimulate creative thought. Okay. So let me move down a little farther down the road on this model here. And just make a couple of comments. First, on the input side, so I put some stars here. Those are the ones I kind of talk about usually. On the input side, here's what you're trying to be. You're trying to be the explorer. Okay, how do you stimulate input into this creative system? Here it says knowledge and experience. Creativity is a function of knowledge and experience. So be curious. Have an insight outlook, or what's the definition of creativity? Getting insight out. Okay, that's kind of a joke. Getting insight out. Okay, so leave your turf. Here's some ideas for input. Be curious, leave your turf, look outside your field, or maybe have cross-functional teams, folks with different experience, diverse teams. How's that? Not just cross-functional, diverse teams. Get overload with ideas. Don't be afraid to be led astray. Break from your routine. Don't overlook the obvious stuff right in your face. Look for little details. So look at those little details. Go where you've been avoiding to go, okay? Because there might be things there to help you. And that's the idea. You're kind of the explorer. Being adventurous is kind of part of the deal. Experiences, being out of your area can be useful. You're getting the raw material, okay? Then, let's see, which one do we want to do? Let's do, I'm not going to do all of them. Let's see. How about evaluation up here? Yeah, evaluation. Here you're the judge. And this is kind of this is a more left brain kind of thing. What's the objective you're pursuing? What are the positives? What are the negatives? What's the probabilities? So you're judging, you're judging the output, you're judging the process. It's evaluation, control mechanism. So what are the objectives you're pursuing? Positives, negatives, probabilities. What's the downside? What if everything goes in the toilet? What can happen? What can be salvaged? How about timelines? Are there deadlines? Is the time ripe for this activity? How about blind spots? How about arrogance? As you're evaluating, about arrogance. How about throwing a little humor in? What would the fool say? Okay, that's something. You think about what all goes into this evaluation process. So here you're the judge, and the character trait is being decisive. You have to, what's the verdict? What's your decision? So that's the control mechanism. Output, we already talked about output. How about putting it into action? Right here, implementation stage. And here you're kind of the warrior, because you got to persevere in the face of a lot of ridicule, a lot of times. And I had a quote from, is it here? I think a quote from Machiavelli. We already did our Machiavelli exercise. Oh yeah, this is from The Prince. There is nothing, okay, so this is implementation. You got some new idea. There's nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success, this is right out of The Prince, Machiavelli, than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. You got some new ideas. These are great ideas. We do creative ideas. But it's a perilous activity to introduce something new. Why is that? Because the innovator, that creative individual, has for enemies all those who have done well under the old conditions, okay, the way things work, the archaic ways of doing things, they're doing okay. They're going to be your enemies because everything's going smooth for them. And only lukewarm defenders in those who may do well under the new way of doing things because they don't know, they haven't experienced it. They're going to be, oh, I don't know, I guess I guess it's okay. Okay. So the warrior, implementation, being bold, having a plan, a fire in your belly, a lion in your heart. I'm reading some things here that they say about this. Capitalize on your resources, sharpen your sword. You know, you have to defend yourself. Know what you're selling. What's the benefit? The product of the product. The benefits delivered back to that fundamental model we had of folks that have needs and wants, products that have features and attributes, benefits, translating those features and attributes into product of the product. It's kind of like the old adage of marketing. We used to talk about it more. It's like, I think it fits here. Selling the sizzle, not the steak. The sizzle, not the steak. The steak is the facts, you know, this cow, whatever. That's the facts. The sizzle, yeah. Okay. Strengthen your shield, follow through, savor your victories, and learn from your defeats. Get up when knocked down. This is left, hard stuff. Okay, so we did a little input, we did a little control, we did a little implementation. Output, we all know that when we see it, I think, is what we do there. And then we're going to talk more about this, the process. We got some things coming up, but here's the process. Here you're the artist. This is right side. This is the soft side, back to the hard soft model we looked at. And so here you're the artist. And what helps when you're in this process? You know, the process, the imagination process. How about luck? Could be generation of just piles of alternatives. Having the right frame of mind, a relaxed attitude, lack of experience might even be helpful. Back to being half awake and half asleep. What do you say here? Offline, defocused, sleep, fluid thinking, all that jazz, right? So, taking different angles on things. We're going to talk about that. Scamper kind of gets at this. Who's doing Scamper? I can tell you. Jake, Alex, Muck, going to do Scamper. And it talks about adapt, imagine, reverse, connect, compare, eliminate, parody, incubate, a bunch of different things that can help stimulate creative thinking, that imagination, the process, right? And here's a character trait. How about off the wall? I mentioned that when we graded as an option when I graded cases. Put an OW on there, man, off the wall, like you had this mystical experience and ended up on that paper. Okay, so that's some things about the process. Imagination. We're going to look more at that. So how do you get an imaginative state of mind? Here's a picture. A lot of my ideas here I stole from a book. Well, a couple books, a few different books actually, but there are two by this guy, Roger von Oech. You can hardly see it there. And he had this book he wrote years ago, self-structured PhD, came off of a self-structured PhD program he did at Stanford. And it was called Whac on the Side of the Head. How do you get those ideas out? Whac on the Side of the Head. And then he had a sequel to Whac on the Side of the Head called Kick in the Seat of the Pants. If the whack doesn't get it out, maybe the kick will get it out. And that's what he did. And so what we're trying to do here, we're trying to get whacked. I mean, that's the idea. Stimulate that imagination, that process of creative thinking. Look at that guy. He's the whack guy. Look at that tie. That's some tie. I've been looking for one of those for years. Got lightning bolts and moons and stars, and that guy has just gotten whacked. I don't know if you've ever been whacked, but here we're going to talk about it. So that's kind of the next step, is to think about, dig into this process a little bit. Let me turn you so you get the whole process a little bit more. Let's see, get rid of the whack guy. I should pause this, I suppose, but I don't need that much time to kind of collect my thoughts here. Okay. Then, what are we down to? We're down to a couple articles. And this is Brendan's. Now, sometimes stuff doesn't post up on Google Docs. I'm not sure what it is. You get this stuff down the left-hand side, it just lets you post stuff right up. But some folks have to log into their Google accounts or something. I don't know if that, okay, I talked to Brendan about this, talked to someone last week about this. Maybe it was Max. Max got it straightened out somehow, but yeah, there's just a big plus sign up in the left-hand corner on the screen, and that means, yeah, I want to add something to this place where I got all this stuff. And anyway, check it out. If you have problems, let me know. So, but Brendan, we got the Martin and Goolsby Smith article. Management is more than a science. God, this is, I don't know, this is a pretty good article. And it's pretty current too. Look at that, 2017, like it was yesterday. So is business a science? You can't chart a course for the future or bring about change merely by analyzing history. Transforming customer habits and experiences is what great business innovators do. It's like Jobs, Innovators often incorporate scientific discoveries in their creation, but their real genius lies in the ability to imagine products or processes that simply never existed before. So it's like, the scientific approach to business decision-making has limitations, and managers need to figure out where those limitations are. And in the world of big data, we've talked about that. Looking at consumers, you can report on what consumers do, about the why behind it. And so that's where this article fires up, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, we're off to, so you got some whole brain stuff, left and right. The can and cannots of data, apparently. And then listening to stakeholders, so get behind the eyeballs. And then we're off to a little storytelling with Aristotle. Is that right? Aristotle with Zaltman. We had thrown Zaltman too, but Aristotle with the ethos, the will and character to change the current situation, the logos, the logical structure of the argument, problems, transforming problems into probabilities, the pathos, the capacity to empathize, and metaphors. A well-crafted metaphor reinforces all three of these elements of persuasion: ethos, logos, logos, and pathos. A well-crafted metaphor. Metaphor helps you see. Aristotle said it. Ordinary words convey only what we know already. It is from metaphor that we can best get a hold of something fresh. They talk about using metaphors and associative fluency, letting your mind bring these things together. I don't know. It's a pretty swell article when you think about it from a whole brain decision-making kind of perspective. And think about how you know things. Epistemology, stories, metaphors. Metaphor is central to thought, back to Zaltman. Central to thought. And I guess Aristotle kind of agreed, because ordinary words only convey what we know already. Metaphors take you where you haven't been before, something fresh. So this is Goolsby. Hold on. This is, it's Martin and Goolsby -Smith. Oh, those hyphenated names. My daughter didn't even hyphenate. She just kept her name and let her husband keep his name. And my daughter-in-law has this god-awful hyphenated name. My son still has his name, but she stuck our name on the end of hers. And you end up with this 8-syllable whatever, Palacios hyphen Helgeson. Palacios Helgeson. Goes on and on. Just call her Dr. P. She's a gynecologist, OBGYN. Okay. But I digress. Okay. Brendan, you did a swell job, I bet. I'm just kind of stimulating folks to get in there and check out that summary you did, because that's a swell. Do you, Brendan? Just sound off. I mean, that's a swell article that you got to do. Okay. So that was that. That was that. Management is much more than a science, beyond a science. Okay, I've already shown you the books from the cover of the one book from, excuse me, I lost something on the floor. What is this important? Oh, yeah, let's put that back on something. I'll put it right back on here. There we go. Okay. I showed you the book that I snatched some of this stuff from. Von Oech, Whack on the Side of the Head, Kick in the Seat of the Pants. So I stole a fair amount of it from him. And here's some things that he said, you know, or that I found kind of relate to what he said. Creativity is like a water table under the earth. It's a life force that wells up through you. How about that? Einstein said relativity was the most wonderful thought I ever had. Here's someone, Von Oech, said this. He said, creativity is the sex life of our mental, oh, let's not talk about it. Okay, there's enough of that. Okay, of our mental lives, the sex life, what the heck? And he also said, Von Oech said, we have plaque on our brain. And we need some mental floss to loosen it up. Here, where'd that go? Hold it. Don't go anywhere. Mental floss. Where was that? Yeah, there it is. It was the name of a magazine for a while. I don't know if it's still on the market. There's Einstein. Mental floss. You got plaque on your brain. You need some mental floss. We got these metaphors, several metaphors. Love life, plaque on the brain, stuff like that. So how do you get whacked? You know, you've probably been asking yourself that. You know, I saw this guy, you want to know, how does that happen? Here, I'm done with this now. Now we're talking about getting whacked. Let's put him. How do you get whacked? A lot of things can whack you. Maybe you already know that. A lot of things can whack you. Here are some examples. It could result from getting fired from a job. There's a whack. Getting fired can whack you. It could come from thinking of a name for your new puppy. Okay, your family gets a new puppy, and little Susie says, why don't we name the dog 4 o'clock? Never thought of naming a dog 4 o'clock. You know, that could be a whack. You know, so what whacks you? I mean, other things whack you. Here's a paradox. Or a prayer. Is it a paradox? Yeah, it's a paradoxical statement. A solved problem is as useful to the human mind as a broken sword on the battlefield. What does that mean? It could be humor, like it could be a joke, like we talked about Mozart. You know, what is Mozart, the great composer, doing now? So we get that. I'll tell you about that later on. Here's a whack I got. I got this whack from my son when he was 7 years old. So where do whacks come from? And how do you get whacked? A lot of places, a lot of things can do it. his mother, my son's mother, and the mother of my children, my 43-year-old, hold on, no, she's not 43 years old, 43-year wife, 43 years of wifing. God, how old is she? How old am I? My wife was reading our son, Eric, Anne of Green Gables, okay? And so Anne had this pal who was a kindred spirit. They had an affinity for one another. They were close, they were paisano. And my son liked the idea of infinity, but he couldn't say it. He'd say affinity. I said, Eric, it's not, you know what infinity is, right? Infinity. I showed him that. I said, Eric, it's infinity. It's like never-ending Kit Kat bars forever. Okay, so infinity. I said, okay, I kind of got that. I said, yeah, you know, Anne and her pal, they had an affinity. They were like paisanos. They were like close buddies. They were kindred spirits. And so the little lad, 7 years old, yeah, there's the infinity symbol for this abstract mathematical concept. He comes back to me and did something like this. It wasn't this well done, but he said, oh, here's an affinity symbol. I'm going, oh, it's a heart with a kiss and a hug in the middle of that heart. That's a whacker. That was a whacker. I'm going, wow, okay. Yeah, infinity, abstract, mathematical, affinity, relational, feeling, emotional, paisano-y kind of jazz, okay? So how do you get Whac? Well, here's something that I'm going to take us through, and all I have to do is decide when I want to take you through it. Well, as I'm deciding on that, let me look at the last article that we have for tonight. And this was Jake and Maris did this and did a bang up job, I bet. Okay. And it was summaries of the creative habit from Twyla Tharp, this choreographer. And then if that wasn't enough, we threw in Kelly and Kelly, but that's because there were two of them doing this. Jake and Maris were doing this as paisano, buddies. So here we go. Twyla gives you some, and what are her credentials? I mean, does it ever tell us very much about her credentials? I mean, choreographer, Broadway, whatever, you know, pretty renowned in that arena, okay? And, well, anyway, here's what, so Twyla Tharp. And here's some suggestions for being more creative from Twyla, who is a very creative in the arts area. Routine, rituals, and preparation. It helps to have a blank canvas. You know, every morning she would walk and then sit down and write 2,000 words, get coffee, catch a cab to the studio. Okay, so these routines, these rituals, these prepping your brain, getting going. And then creative DNA, the way you view the world and the things you focus on. So it's kind of like sticking to your knitting. What do you do? What's your, you know, self-awareness, knowing your creative DNA will guide you. What's your thing? Okay. I've learned to knit. Oh God, did I really? Harness your memory. Memory is the foundation of creativity, especially muscle memory. Well, that's okay in her dance deal. The creative box. Before you can think outside the box, you need to start with the box. And I think maybe the Coin article might get at that. Scratching, that's researching. So she calls it scratching. So I got this whole list. I'm up to number 5, scratching. That's researching. Write down all your ideas. Accidents, number 6. Don't plan too much. Leave room for accidents. Plan is like scaffolding. But sometimes you want to build beyond the scaffolding, whatever. The spine, that's your center point. Most useful feature. It's a creative homing pigeon. It's kind of back to your stick to your knitting. It's that thing you do. Skill allows you to close the gap between what you can picture in your head and what you can actually produce. So know your skills. Then she talks about ruts and grooves. If you get stuck in a rut, I've got some ideas on some things I'll show you. How do you get out of a rut? And then grooves is back to when you get it rolling, keep it rolling. See if that's all true. Check out Jake and Maris on that. And then failure. Creativity is about taking risk, which is unfortunately means you will fail. Deal with your failure, bounce back. You can learn from editing before taking something to the public. You can learn from editing, okay? And then the Kelly and Kelly article, it's just a little one-pager. Is that about it? Okay, 2-pager. Well, make it 3. From the Harvard Business Review, so real readable stuff. But it's talking about reclaiming your creative confidence, how to get over fears that block your best ideas. Okay, so are you with me on these things? Things that can stimulate creative thinking, some new way of doing whatever it is you're doing. And a lot of rewards come to those that can do that, and a lot of benefit to the world can come from folks that can do that. Okay. So here we're talking about getting over fears. And so that's what Kelly and they're from Ideal. They both end with Ideal, that design outfit. Let's see, where does it tell me? Kelly and Kelly. General manager of Ideal, that's Tom, and Dave is the founder and chairman of Ideal. So they're family members. Ideal is a design think tank kind of place. 4 things that hold you back. Fear of the messy unknown. You need to leave your comfort zone, experience the world to create innovation and avoid playing catch up. The messy unknown, be afraid of that. Fear of being judged. We can't risk our business world ego the same way we are okay with falling when learning to ski. And the idea is maybe you have to take a chance. Okay, so fear of the messy unknown, fear of being judged, taking a chance, fear of the first step. That's the hardest part, is beginning, is what they say. Push yourself to take the first step. What is the cheapest, quickest way to make progress? And then fear of losing control. Have confidence enough to admit when you're wrong and when other people have good ideas. And so those are some summaries of some basic pointers there from Kelly and Kelly. And if you want the real thing, Jake and Maris can give you the real thing. All righty. Well, let's think. Yeah, let's do a little teaser here. This is handout. Get the Whac guy. There he goes. Put him back in his Whac sack. That is. And there it is. Handout 67. The right answer. These are blocks, constraints to creativity. And the idea being, you do the opposite of these things and it might shake loose ideas. So running down the list, if you're looking for the right answer, that's going to slow you right up. If you're just trying to be logical, that's going to slow you. Following the rules is going to slow you up. Being practical, avoiding ambiguity is going to slow you up. To err is wrong. No, you're going to make mistakes. Play is frivolous. Well, we'll talk about that. That's not my area. Hey, that could be a real benefit. Don't be foolish. And the most damning block to creativity is I'm not creative. So we could start into this. I'm kind of feeling like it. Sort of. Okay. Let me do one or two of these. We'll start with the right answer. There may be many right answers. Maybe it's too constraining to look for the best right answer. I think one thing is our educational system kind of moves us that direction. My tests have right answers, right? But other answers might come from opening up some of these locks to creativity. Here's an example. So the right answer. There are these shapes. Up at the top it says, here are 5 figures. Here are 5 figures. Select the one that is different from all the others. Select the one that's different from all the others. And everybody said, oh, I got it. B, it's different than all the others. It's the only one with all straight lines. That's right. That's the right answer. Someone else is saying, how about C? There's C. It's the only one that's asymmetrical. That's true. That's the right answer. And then someone else is saying, it's A. It's the only one that doesn't have points of discontinuity. You know, it doesn't have these points of discontinuity. A is the right answer. Guess what? They're all right answers. D is the only one with straight and curved lines, straight and curved. And then of course, E here, somebody is just dying to say, oh, E is it because it's the only one that looks like a projection of a non-Euclidean triangle into Euclidean space. That's right. That's a right answer, okay? Yeah, very good. They all were right answers. Okay, so back to, that's not the right answer. Yeah, we did that. There could be multiple right answers. How about this one? That's not logical. Hey, you're trying to be creative here, right? And the idea doesn't have to be logical. Here's something, okay. I've given you a copy of this because I thought you needed it. I gave you a copy of this. This is handout 68. Look at that. What is it? It's a random word list to stimulate metaphorical thinking. Okay? And so what I'd like to do is say, okay, who here has a problem? Where's my hand? Who here has a problem? Raise your hand. The more personal, the better. Okay, you got some personal problem. And then, you know, what's your problem? And then you close your eyes and you point at this and it says vice. V-I-S-E. Vice. What does vice have to do with your problem? Well, thinking metaphorically, vice, not V-I-C-E, okay? That might be a whole nother issue, but this is V-I-S-E, okay? Yeah, vice grips, vice, clamp stuff down. And what's that have to do with your problem? Clamping stuff down, maybe pitching it off. That's not logical. That's not a logical way to attack problems. There's your copy, handout 68. But it could jog your thinking about metaphors for thinking. Follow the rules. And back to what creative thinking is. Did I say anything about blending, bending, breaking things? How about rules to stimulate creative thinking? So creativity is constructive, but also destructive. You know, it often requires breaking out of old patterns and constraints to find new approaches. The Cohn article talks about, who's doing that? Alex S. and Max. Talks about building new boxes. So breaking the rules, getting out of bed on the other side, watching daytime TV. Here's a classic example of breaking the rules. I just have to find that classic. Oh, there it is. It's the old 9-dot exercise. What's the 9-dot exercise? The puzzle is, let's read it. The 9-dot exercise. Can you draw 4 and only 4 straight lines that pass through all 9 dots without lifting your pencil? There it is, the old 9-dot exercise. 4 and only 4 lines without lifting your pencil goes through all those dots. Okay, I'll count to 1,000. Let you figure that out. 1, 2, okay. The deal is, when people do this little puzzle, the outer boundary of the dots is like a rule. You don't go beyond. Well, that's not how you solve the problem. The problem is solved by going, where do I want to go here? I want to go here. I'll put it this way. Put it that way. Does that do it? Yeah, there's 4 lines. The deal is you go outside of the box. Here you go, out here, down here, out there. And yeah, that's how you solve the 9-dot puzzle, by not being constrained by the rules that you've set up for yourself. Hey, what else could we do? It says 4 and only 4 lines. What if we just folded it and skewered it with something? Is that cheating? What if we just took a big paintbrush? Okay, it's not. Is that destroying the rules? Let's see. I want to do a couple more of these, save some for another time. Follow the rules. We just took care of that and find order. Being practical. Yeah, to get into an imaginative state of mind, you may not want to be practical. Practicality is best for evaluation of the ideas, for implementation, more left brainy kind of things, evaluating ideas, implementing ideas. That's where practicality might come in, but maybe not so good for the imagination phase of this process, this creativity process. Here it says, we're up to 5 already. Avoid ambiguity. That's wrong. That's just wrong. Okay, cultivating ambiguity, using random, ambiguous information. How about like that random word list? Thinking of problems and topics and metaphors, biological metaphors, spider webs and dry leaves and giving birth, whatever. Personal metaphors. Einstein thought of himself, he thought, oh, what would it be like if I rode a light beam? It was a personal metaphor. He thought about that. Fantasy, taking your problem into another world, remote world, take it to Hollywood, take it to military special forces, take it back in history someplace, some different social situation. Okay, so this is kind of ambiguous approach to things, and that can stimulate thinking, especially when you think of, again, with the idea of metaphors. To err is wrong. And again, I think our educational system stimulates that kind of perspective. The point is, you don't always get a hit every time you're up to bat. Okay, who's a baseball person? You know, it's spring, you know, birds are chirping, flowers are blooming, and you know what happens. A young man's fancy turns to thoughts of baseball. That's what it turns to, baseball. Okay, and you know how many 1,000 hitter Hall of Famers are there? 3,000 hitters. About 27, 28 baseball players in the Baseball Hall of Fame have had 3,000 hits in a career. 3,000 hits. To get those 3,000 hits as a Hall of Fame baseball player, how many times have you been up to bat? 10,000. About 10,000, just on average. About 10,000 times. What's the point is, you know, you don't always get a hit every time you're up to bat. That's okay. You still end up in the Hall of Fame. So, yeah, to err is wrong. And here's some other metaphors. How about here's a metaphor. Intuition is scar tissue from bad decisions. Errors. Intuition is scar tissue from bad decisions, errors. There's another one. Experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And you get experience and build up your base for intuition. Let's see. Well, yeah, you get experience, you learn from it. Creativity is primarily about failure. It's destructive. It can be destructive. Bend, blend, break. Okay, or is it blend, bend? Whichever way you want to do it. What's this say? 85% of ideas are no good. 1 or 2% are real good. Okay. Play is frivolous. I'm already moving along here. I might as well. Geez. Okay. Let me show you this. Play is frivolous. You know, I'll show you a close relationship between humor and creativity. Here's the close relationship between humor and creativity. See, right here. This says, can I hold that with that hand and point with this hand? Here's like, I get it. I get it. I understand. How about aha? That's like eureka. I found it. And then there's ha ha. Oh God, that was so funny. I could just spit. No, you know, there it is. I understand. Aha, a true revelation. Ha ha. Okay, so I like some ha ha. I don't know about you, but I like some ha ha in class. A couple of things, you know, I show you different things. Humor stretches our thinking. It's a benefit to creativity. You know, okay, we mentioned the great composer Mozart and how he had ideas come in the middle of the night for his works. What's the great composer Mozart doing right now? Decomposing. God, that was a terrible kind of joke. Okay, how about what do John the Baptist, you know, John the Baptist, scripture, right? He heralded Christ's coming, whatever. John the Baptist, what did John the Baptist and Winnie the Pooh have in common? John the Baptist, Winnie the Pooh. We're here. Play is frivolous. Oops, I'm missing number 10. Play is frivolous. What do they have in common? Number one, they have the same middle name. There you go. Hey, what else? They both ate honey, I think. I think they both had fur coats. They were male-ish, both are male-ish sort of critters, something there. So here's the thing. Incongruity is the heart of humor and a real close cousin to ambiguity. Incongruity. It's the heart of humor. And it's close cousin to ambiguity. So here's a couple ideas on incongruity. Here's what happens. Like, one of the things that happens with humor is your expectations kind of take you down a path, you know? And so humor, where am I? Play is frivolous. Humor. Expectations take you down a path. And that's where you get surprised. This was an old Groucho Marx joke. When he had a scene, they were off in Africa, something, Africa. Groucho Marx, 1920, when I'm 28. I just shot an elephant in my pajamas. He was in Africa, Groucho said. How he got in my pajamas, I don't know. Okay, I shot an elephant in my pajamas in Africa, whatever. How I got in my pajamas, so it just veers you off. You have these expectations. Here's another one, it's like Stephen Colbert. He said, he's looking at some political thing, some graph there. He says, if I'm reading this graph correctly, I'd be real surprised. Okay, so it takes you down the path, turns you to the side. That's part. Incongruity is part of the heart of humor, because you get tickled, because you get surprised, you get tricked. And ambiguity, incongruity, ambiguity, close cousins to one another. Yeah, that's probably. Let's do them all. That's not my area. That's perfect. That's perfect. Back to diverse groups, diversity. You think about different kinds of diversity. Innate diversity, like race, sex, and whether you have hair or no hair. Kind of innate diversity. Whatever it might be, something you're kind of born with. But then there could be acquired diversity, Think about folks with different backgrounds. Maybe they've been in the military. Maybe they're have a different educational background. Maybe they're just from another whole different socioeconomic strata. And that's acquired diversity. I think it's a way to think about it, although you could be innate, maybe partially, but okay, you got stuff you're kind of born with, grow up with, innate, and then acquired by training, education, experiences. So not my area. Yeah, that's perfect. Back to the different angles on things, that plug thing I did with the square, the circle, and the triangle, and that one, depending on how you looked at it, yeah, that could be, that could be a real benefit. Different angles on that elephant, the very first thing we looked at. So looking outside your area for inspiration, courting ambiguity. You can't probably tell that you don't know that I subscribe to Muscle Magazine. Do I really? Maybe not. Hey, here's a magazine. There's a magazine I subscribe to. That's not true. I don't subscribe to it, but I got this from somebody. And here, it's outside my area. And what I find in here, among other things, I found stuffed remains. That's all I'm going to say. This is kind of, yeah, I'm over the edge here. Okay, so looking outside your area. Yeah, okay. Don't be foolish. We talked about play and humor and its benefits. Okay, so play is frivolous, humor, yeah, it's important. Here we're going beyond play. We're going beyond humor. We're going to just downright whippiness, foolishness. And what's the idea here? Being foolish is like reverse on an automobile. Most gears go forward, but if you're stuck, reverse can be real handy. Think about some snowbank you got stuck in sometime. Reverse can be real handy. So foolishness is like reverse on an auto. Most you got the 5, 8, whatever gears moving forward, you got the 1 going back. And if you're stuck in a rut, reverse can be a real handy thing to have. Foolishness can be a real handy. Whippiness can be a real handy thing to have. And then the last, these are all blocks, constraints, things that keep you from being creative. The last one, I'm not creative. That's the last one, probably the most damning of the whole bunch, you know. Most fundamental block. If you tell yourself you're not creative, what do you think? You won't be. It's kind of self-talk, self-fulfilling prophecy stuff. What do you tell yourself about yourself? So studies have found that the most creative employees were those that thought they were the most creative. I don't know which came first, but you know. And back to, where's that swell? God, I really like this. Are you creative? Are you a creature created by and in the likeness of a creator? Therefore, you are creative. And we all have creativity, varying degrees, but we all can do it. And think about some of these articles that we're reading, things you can do to enhance it. This stuff, overcoming these blocks. How about those 2 techniques? Just 2 of them, but there's a bunch of them. You can find them out there on the internet and stuff to stimulate creative thinking. Holy cow pies, there we go. There'll be less I'll have to do next time. Okay. If you have questions or anything, get to me. Did I mention, and I did mention the value paper, right? Or did I not do that sufficiently? One more time. Value paper next week. Download it, turn it in on Blackboard. And it can be, I prefer pairs. Read the syllabus. I didn't think I talked about this much at the beginning. Read the syllabus, catch all those things. Use that model that we have of creativity. Hit on those items. Read the syllabus, do everything it says there. Have headings in your write-up. And do it with a buddy. You don't have to, but I prefer it, but okay, whatever you can do. If you have questions on the value creation paper due next week, let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to wrap this up here. Okay, so check in with me. Thank you so much. Goodbye.